All right, we'll get started with Doc. If you have a question, we have mics on both sides, and we'll start with Kirsten to your right.
Dave, just when you look at the roster construction, what led just to the decision to carry 11 pitchers and 15 position players?
After much deliberation, I think kind of looking at the short series, looking at having a couple starters as far as Sheehan and Glass in the pen, feeling good about covering the innings. And then you're looking at, Muntz coming off some lower body stuff, Tommy coming off the ankle, and, Will feeling like he can be viable in a pinch hit spot, potentially catch coming into a game. So all of those variables led us to the extra position player and kind of how we, constructed that position player group.
You mentioned both Max Muncy and Tommy Edman. I know yesterday both of them were able to get some at-bats, and Max has been on the field, things like that. But how are you feeling just with them battling, coming back from those injuries and being back out there?
I feel good. Both guys took a handful of at-bats yesterday. They both came out of it well, feeling good, encouraged. And so there's a lot of ways that we can kind of simulate at-bats, which they've done, and then also with the at-bats that they took yesterday. So I feel good with where we're at and kind of the options that I'll have off the bench too.
Go to Mr. Hill up front.
Yeah, Skipper, KKL9, Jim Hill. What's the mindset of you and your club right now as you're the defending champions and everyone is predicting good things for you again? What are the pitfalls that are out there that you have to be aware of?
I think the pitfalls are just kind of easing your way into a series. There's certainly a very short series. And I don't see that as a problem. A pitfall is facing Hunter Green. He's got a good arm, a really great competitor. But I do feel that just having the one day off is a benefit to us offensively. Don't know how that's going to play out tonight or tomorrow, but I think mentally, as a roster, all that stuff, we're in a good spot.
We can stay there with Claudia.
Hi, Dave. Can you talk about Justin Dean and what he brings to the club moving forward? Yeah,
Justin has had a really nice year. I think he's an 80 defender out in center field, so he can come in and steal a base. So, just the flexibility of somebody who can, score on a base hit, steal a base, come in for defense in a plus game to tighten some things up of benefit.
Standing in the back left, Sonia.
Dave, you mentioned Will as being an option to pinch hit. Is he close to being an option behind the plate as well, or would that be potentially beyond this week?
He is. The hitting, the throwing, he feels really good about. So I think it's a day-to-day thing. And so I'm not closing the door that he's not going to start tomorrow, but I do feel that the floor of having him available to hit in any big spot, it was certainly worth having him on the roster. But yeah, we're going to leave that open as far as his availability to start.
Go to the back left with Bill Plunkett.
Yeah, Dave, I need you to come to the decision to leave a couple of guys off who were with you all year, Bonda and Conforto.
So, I sort of referenced the Conforto thing, given the, where Muncy and Tommy are at physically to have the extra infielder, and then also having Will Smith's availability off the bench. And so that's a little bit kind of how we came to that, and you're basically kind of thinking, are you going to take Will's bat off the bench or Michael's at bat, right now. So that was kind of one thing which is very difficult because it's been a really difficult for Michael, but he's owned every kind of performance. He's owned this performance, hasn't run away from it. He showed up to work every single day, offensively, defensively. So he's one of my favorites, and he'll be ready if called upon. And hopefully, we have a long run, and we're going to need him. As far as Bonda, very, very difficult decision as well. And I think that having the length of some starters, and this is just a very right-hand heavy team. And so looking at, the landscape of their team, who they hit for, there would just not be a lot of opportunities for Anthony. And so very difficult conversation, but if we're fortunate enough to, get to the next round, he'll be in there first, the Phillies.
We have two last ones, Jack.
With the bullpen, do you have a couple guys you want to try to use in the ninth inning, or are you going to be going pretty much matchups and what makes sense the whole way through?
I've got some clarity. Not exactly sure. I do think that, if a guy's throwing the baseball well and they have more bullets, then, I feel good about them continuing. But I have probably, 3 or 4 guys I feel really comfortable finishing the game for us.
And then appreciating you guys have him lined up to start Thursday, but we talk so much about the possibility of Ohtani in the bullpen. Is there any scenario the next couple nights where that could be on the table?
I don't think so. Never say never, but I don't think so, Jack. But again, I guess anything's possible.
Do two last ones, the third row right here.
Hey, Doc, how do you feel about momentum and the place that your guys are in coming into this series?
Momentum's real. It's not everything. I think that whether it's, the Rangers finding their way into the postseason to then win the World Series, or some team start finishing hot and remaining hot, or in a particular game. I do believe that in a postseason game, momentum is real, and how you kind of manage it to not let it spiral. I do love being at home because a lot of times that's what perpetuates it, the home crowd, the energy. And how you manage it, how the players manage it. And I do think that having experience, which we have a lot of guys that have postseason experience, can sort of manage, big spots.
We'll finish up with Fabian.
Yeah, Dave, when you talk about letting a guy go who has bullets to go to close out a game, is Glasnow an option for that? And what scenario would it require basically for you to deploy him in relief?
Yeah, Glass is an option. I just think that he's ready for whatever we ask of him. It's high octane stuff. And so if we deploy him and inning withstanding, if he's throwing the baseball well, I see no reason why he wouldn't continue. So I don't know when, what situation. It's not even a particular run. But, we'll see. We'll see. But I'm just grateful because, we have our best guys. And, Clayton's one of those guys, but he pitched on Sunday. So I feel good with kind of how we're equipped.
Doc, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Andrew, thanks for coming down. Appreciate it. Who's got the first question for Andrew? We'll start with Kirsten right here.
Andrew, Dave just kind of talked about some of the roster construction in this one and going with more position players. When you look at just some of those challenging conversations you had to have with guys like Michael Conforto, Anthony Banda, what led to just kind of going with this group and kind of seeing what they can do in this short series?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, opponent factors in. The fact that there's 3 games in this series, the fact that we have some starters who are in the bullpen that provide some length, all factors that weigh in. Health of certain guys, where they're at, another variable that factors in. And then inevitably you have tough conversations. No matter which directions we were going, we were going to have tough conversations. And I think for us, it's just about as soon as a decision is made, having that conversation, being as honest and empathetic as we can. But ultimately, we have to do whatever we feel like gives us the best chance to win.
Other questions for Andrew? We'll go to Doug on your left, Andrew.
Andrew, how much of the decision-making for the roster construction had to do with making sure Kike's getting everyday playing time in the lineup more?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we've all seen the level of focus and energy that Kike brings, especially in October. Big factor in wanting to bring him back this offseason. That being said, you never know how a season's going to play out and what things are going to look like. But he's had a good little run here lately and feels like his swing's in a better spot. And his ability to kind of slow things down and take what the pitcher gives and then also add really good defense on top of it is something that, we felt really comfortable betting on.
Fabian up front here.
Yeah, Andrew, what did you see from Will the last few days and about that sort of gave you the clarity that he could be in the lineup? And what is the realistic timeline for him to be able to be behind the plate?
Yeah, I think as far as being an option off the bench to hit, it all came down to very simple, like, has the bone in his hand healed or not? And last week he had a hard time gripping things, and that progressively got better. And so got to a good place where the bone had healed. Now it's about getting strength back. And then once you do that, then it's about throwing. And we were able to keep his legs going, but he hasn't had that throwing volume in a little while. And so now we have to continue to kind of aggressively layer that on. But as far as him in the batter's box, if there's a big spot, we all felt really good about betting on Will.
Other questions for Andrew? Eric, we'll get you the mic.
Tommy Edman's back, and he's playing second base today. How is his ankle in relation to potentially playing the outfield?
Yeah, he kind of aggravated it last week in Arizona. Playing the outfield, he'll do whatever. But I think for us, the best chance to just keep him going and strong right now is to limit the amount of movement in the outfield. And so at least for right now, that's our thought. And hopefully we get some days and keep going, and it progressively gets better and better and kind of opens that up. But right now we're kind of erring on the side of caution.
Standing on your right, Jack.
How difficult were just the bullpen problems this year to find answers to, and how are you guys feeling about that group now as you begin this month?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this some, and they've had stretches of good. They've had some stretches where it's been really tough and challenging. At the end of the day, as we're working through it the last couple of weeks, it's not a talent issue. We've talked about this a lot. Relievers, kind of like place kickers, are tightrope walkers. It's what they do for a living. They do well, people forget about them. They don't do well, and they're in the ire of everything. And so it's tough. And when the confidence is wavering, the execution is off. When the execution is off, you get behind and you come in zone, and you're just more likely to take on damage. And so it's kind of that imperfect storm in a lot of ways. So as far as stuff and quality of pitches, that hadn't necessarily backed up. It was more just execution and falling behind way too much. And we've seen it a lot over the years. Bullpen pieces are volatile. You see it year to year, but you also see it week to week, or in a 2-week span. All it needs is a little something to ignite it and to spark it. And we've seen it time and time again with guys who've scuffled and all of a sudden found it and they roll off a heater. And so we still have a lot of confidence in a lot of those arms. Now it's about figuring out the right game opportunities, score situations to get them in and kind of keep building on that. But at the same time, we're also fortunate to have the starting depth that we have. And for, Emmett Sheehan and Glass to be able to be options in this. And I think the biggest downside of playing in a wild card series, obviously if you're able to advance, is what your pitching looks like after that. That's the cost. And I think with our depth, that's really mitigated. And, depending on if we're fortunate enough to get out of this round, how many arms we've used and when, but to have Clayton Kershaw standing there ready, no matter how we deploy our pitching this week, gets at just the cost not being as great in terms of that. And so obviously 3-game series against a really good team, there's a lot of risk to that. But if you could say, hey, you definitely get out of this round, then I would argue it's a good thing that we played these games, but obviously you can't guarantee me that.
Take a last question or two before Ellie gets here. Sonia in the back.
Andrew, do you think that the time off at the end of the season was enough for Max Muncy to kind of reset and get into a good place health-wise, or will you kind of need to manage him going forward?
He's in a good spot. I think it was helpful. He took live at bats yesterday and felt really good. It's obviously not the same as a game situation, but feel pretty good about where he's at. The swings he took yesterday, you could see in the first at bat just a little apprehensive, and he's like, okay, feels good, I can trust it. And then he started getting way more aggressive with the swings. So we feel good about where he's at.
We'll go to the fourth row on your left, Andrew.
Hi, Andrew. How do you evaluate Hae-Sung Kim's first season in your organization, and what do you expect from him in this October?
Yeah, I think Kim had a very good year. It's tough transitioning and meeting teammates in a whole new culture, and his personality, his work ethic, his desire to be really good really stood out all year. And I think for the first year and experiencing all of that, I thought he did a great job. And it'll be something that hopefully we win 13 games, celebrate, and then it'll be good this offseason to kind of take everything that he learned this year and have a really good offseason to put him in position to, come in and compete for a lot more playing time next year.
Andrew, thanks so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.